Freedom in football is dying. Why is it so much more uncommon to see players taking a risk and dribbling through 3 or 4 players with skills, or shooting from 30 yards? Has football become boring? Is it the tactics? Has the level of defending evolved? Is the risk just not worth the reward? Do footballers still play with the individual freedom they used to? Tactically, football has evolved so much over the years, from the early days where the origins of football formations came about. Back then, football was played so simply. They would use a formation known as a pyramid, or the 2-3-5 formation, which had a focus on all-out attack and complete freedom for their forwards. The tactic was to get the ball to the attacker and let them shoot with a minimal amount of passing. In the 1920s, Herbert Chapman, who managed Arsenal, brought about the WM formation, which made up a 3-2-2-3 shape. It counteracted the pyramid formation and gave teams more structure, as it allowed teams to deal with the narrow attackers in the 2-3-5 shape. Managers in today's game don't line up with the usual WM shape, but will switch to a modern version when in possession, as it allows them to provide adequate cover and protection against counter-attacks, without a drop in quality of attacking build-up play, positioning and possession. In the 70s, Rinus Michels and Johan Cruyff brought through a groundbreaking strategy that had an emphasis on fluidity and freedom, known as total football. Any player could play at any position, which allowed them to have a numerical advantage and dominate opponents. They would rotate freely but structurally around the pitch. When defending, they would press high and shut down any space as fast as possible, forcing the opposition into errors, allowing them to counter-attack. In today's era of football, total football is still very present and used by many managers, including a student of Johan Cruyff's, Pep Guardiola. Pep once said he often asks himself, what would Johan do? Pep has incorporated many styles and has had a massive impact on the world of football with his tactics known as positional play, which focuses on passing triangles or diamonds in the hopes of progressing possession through the thirds. Although Pep allows his players to be very free positionally like he does with John Stones allowing him to play in central midfield, or the way he plays Bernardo Silva in a free roaming position, this is where footballers have lost their individual freedom. As if a player decided to skill his way through a couple of defenders but then lose the ball, he'd be going against the system. If a player is outside the box, with the goal in their sights, they would rather pass, as the emphasis these days is on keeping possession. The increased focus is on turnovers and transitions. This is evident by pretty much all managers. This is shown by the evolution of shooting in the Premier League. If you look back at the Goals of the Month shortlist from 10 to 15 years ago, you will quickly realise just how obvious the reduction in shooting distance is. As the distance shots have been taken from over the years has decreased, the shots from the ground has increased, as now teams literally pass the ball into the net. Have footballers become worse technically over the years? Is it being taught in the youth academies to be more of an athlete than a pure footballer? Or are they teaching players by the book and not allowing them to have that fearlessness and that freedom? When I look at a player like Bukayo Saka, I look at a quality player who does all the basics at a world-class level. But he's a product of today's generation of football. He doesn't have that freedom of taking risks. I never thought I'd agree with Michael Owen, but he's right in this clip.
I think footballers were more pure footballers back in the day. Well, now you have to be an athlete. Right. You just have to be able to run, you have to be big, you have to be fast, you have to, you have to be covering X amount of kilometres. There's loads of great players that were absolute ballers, proper talented.
The counter to all this, and the reason they went to battle for so many years, is the Gegenpress. The Gegenpress was made famous by Jurgen Klopp at Borussia Dortmund. Known as rock and roll football, the intense pressing strategy is designed to take control of the ball back as quickly as possible once it has been lost. High-intensity pressing disrupts the build-up play of the opponents, which paves the way for a fast turnover and speedy counter-attacks. The issue with this was that you could only press at this intense level for a certain length of the game, until you became tired, which is where Pep Guardiola's side would pounce. Like Mike Tyson, Pep's side would pass the ball around, keeping their eyes on their opponents.
Then once I see a chink in his armor, boom.
When we look at the genre of the streets won't forget, the Adel Taraps, the Hatem Ben Arfas, the Ronaldinhos, the Berbatovs. In the future, who will them players be? The pool of players is going to be very small, and it's due to the fact that football has become too safe and risk-free.